taking the number 5 spot is Final Fantasy IX. Now, some of you guys are probably shocked to see this game above Final Fantasy VII, and this game being Hironobu Sakaguchi's favorite Final Fantasy game, not higher. Well, don't get me wrong, I love Final Fantasy IX. In fact, the top 5 are the Final Fantasy games that I love the most, and 9 is one of them. Now, for anybody who loved the first 6 Final Fantasy games, this game brings the series back to its medieval roots. And of course you got the typical classes. You got Knight, Summoner, White Mage, Black Mage, Thief, and all those other stuff. This game has lots of characters that are based on those classes. Like, there's the main character, Sidon, who's a thief. Vivi, which a lot of people love, is a black mage. Garnet, while she is technically a white mage, she plays more as a summoner. Then there's Eiko. She is a summoner, but she plays more like a white mage. Then there's Freya, who's a dragoon. She's not as popular as the other dragoons, like Cid from Final Fantasy VII and Kain from Final Fantasy IV. Yeah. And then there's a character called Quina, who's a blue mage, and I just have one thing to say. Why does that character exist? And of course, this game is also the game to introduce one of the best villains in the Final Fantasy series, Kuja. Oh man, Kuja is freaking awesome. Even though some people are kind of creeped out by his design. But still. Basically, I love 9. It's just an amazing game. It has a great story, a great cast of characters, and the music is just so amazing. And that's pretty much all I gotta say about Final Fantasy IX. I mean, it's such a great game. It's got likable characters, except for that one character I mentioned. And just overall, it's a really great game, and is definitely one of my personal favorites. And don't get me wrong, as much as I love Final Fantasy IX, there are other Final Fantasy games that I love more. And this is just the start. Coming in at number 4 is Final Fantasy XII. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are probably shocked to see this one at number 4 and not lower. Well, like I said, I actually prefer this game over Final Fantasy X a little bit more. Now, I really didn't care for 12 that much, but as I played through it, I actually enjoyed it. I like Final Fantasy 12, even though I'm not really a big fan of the combat system, but it's still a Final Fantasy game, so I like it. Now, there are a lot of things I like about Final Fantasy 12. Now, while the story can be long, it's actually pretty good. The characters are actually really great. There are a lot of characters I like. I like Balthier, Ash, Bosch, Gabranth, and yes, I actually like Vaan. I know some people call him the most pointless character in the game, but to me, I actually like Vaan. He actually reminds me of a couple characters that are pretty much the same as Vaan. And yeah. I like the license and gambit system, which is really cool. Because that way you can customize how you want your your character to play. Like, you could play like let them be mages or warriors or stuff like that. It's a really cool concept. And another thing that I like about Final Fantasy XII is that the game has so much similarities with Star Wars, which is my favorite movie franchise of all time. And as you probably may or may not know, the other Final Fantasy games has some similarities with Star Wars, but Final Fantasy XII has the most similarities and stuff to Star Wars. Like, I would say this, but it could take a while, but I still think it's pretty cool. But I will say, like this, Vaughn is a bit like Luke Skywalker, because, he lives in one part where he's not really a big fan of, and he wishes to, be like a sky pirate, or like Luke wants to join the Rebel Alliance. Then there's Balthier, who's basically the Han Solo of the game. And he's quite charming as well. Ash is basically Princess Leia. Fran, she's a bit like a combination of Chewbacca. She's not really human, but she's a very strong companion to Balthier. And, Gabranth, who's a bit like Darth Vader, which is actually a really cool concept. So, yeah, Final Fantasy XII, it does has its flaws, but I love it. I think it's a great Final Fantasy game on the PS2. It is easily one of my personal favorite games on the PS2. But out of all the PS2 RPGs, I still prefer Kingdom Hearts 2 over Final Fantasy XII. Number 3 is Final Fantasy VIII. Yes, I said it. I prefer Final Fantasy VIII more than Final Fantasy VII. You guys can just go around and bitch about it all you want, but remember, it's my list, not yours. Anyway, so, yes, Final Fantasy VIII is my favorite 3D Final Fantasy game, as well as my favorite Final Fantasy game on the PlayStation. Well, tied with Final Fantasy IX, since both of those games are one of my personal favorites. But anyway, first of all, I don't understand why many people hate this game so much. I mean, I don't care what many people say, especially Spoony. I love Final Fantasy VIII. In fact, Final Fantasy VIII introduced me a lot of things to Final Fantasy. This was the game that introduced me to the series. And I'll tell you. One, this was, as I said before, I saw a review of this game on Toonami, and it kicked ass. Second, when I first played Kingdom Hearts 1 and Chain of Memories, the first Final Fantasy character I saw for the first time was Squall Leonhardt. And he did not disappoint me. In fact, Squall is easily one of my personal favorite Final Fantasy characters of all time. Hell, he's even my favorite main character. So yeah, first of all, there are some stuff I really like about Final Fantasy VIII. I love the gameplay. I don't understand why many people say it sucks. I like the draw system. It was good. The junctions were pretty good, because also I don't have to worry about MP, because basically you stock magic. Like you can have 5 fire spells or 20 sleep spells, which I really liked. And everything about Final Fantasy VIII, I just think the gameplay is really cool. And it looks kind of modernized, too, which I really liked. The graphics were a lot better than Final Fantasy VII, even though Final Fantasy IX I already talked about. But still. The characters in Final Fantasy VIII, they were okay. Like I said, I love Squall. Rinoa, she was okay, even though she was annoying. And I did like the idea of Squall and Rinoa. Don't get me wrong, I got nothing against that. And I know what you're thinking. And I don't want to get into the story when I do my Let's Play of this game. See, Zell is kind of funny, especially his love for hot dogs. Cypher's a dick. A big dick at that. And I don't even care about his 2 sidekicks. Either, don't get me started. Irvine's not too bad. I mean, he kind of looks a bit like a teenage version of Crocodile Dundee. With a sniper rifle, that is. Quetzis is like a teacher I want. Seriously, if she was my teacher, oh man, the classmates would be in for it if she whipped ya. And, Sylphie, even though I've seen her a bit in Kingdom Hearts, she was, I can't say anything about her. She's a bit like Vanille. But still, either way, I love Final Fantasy VIII. It's my favorite 3D Final Fantasy game of all time, and once again, like I said, if you don't like Final Fantasy VIII, that's okay. But don't go shoving it up people's asses. Because like I said, I think this game is really good. It's not as underrated as Final... And I think this game doesn't deserve a lot of hate. So I would say, screw you, Spoony. By the way, Spoony is awesome. I just did not like his review of Final Fantasy VIII. So yeah. In other words, you should check my Let's Play out of Final Fantasy VIII whenever it comes out. Alrighty, coming in at number 2 and taking the silver medal is Final Fantasy IV. Oh man, this game is just really amazing. This is one of the best Final Fantasy games I ever played. Now, before I begin, I just want to talk more about 4. Let's take a little history lesson. Now, I said this before with Final Fantasy V, but I didn't go into further detail. Now, first of all, when this game came out outside of Japan, it was called Final Fantasy II for the Super Nintendo. Here's the reason. In 1988, Final Fantasy II was released 1 year after Final Fantasy I. However, that was a different Final Fantasy II. That was for the Famicom, which is the Japanese NES. But sadly, it never made it to America. And the same happened with Final Fantasy III, which came around 1 year after, about 2 years after the release of Final Fantasy II. And Final Fantasy III never got an American import until the DS remake. So, in 1991, Final Fantasy IV was made, and it was the second Final Fantasy game released outside of Japan, which was why it was called Final Fantasy II. However, after the release of Final Fantasy VII, they corrected it. On the PlayStation, they called it renamed it Final Fantasy IV, part of the Final Fantasy Chronicles collection, which contained 4 and Chrono Trigger. The game was later... So, yeah, that was the confusing part, because I knew that was Final Fantasy IV. The game also got a Game Boy Advance remaster, which was terrible. A PSP remastering for the PSP called the Complete Collection, which contained the Interlude and the After Years, which is the sequel to Final Fantasy IV. And it also got a remake on the DS, which is the version that I play the most. And I love the DS remake. I haven't even played the Super Nintendo version. I like to at some point. And of course, I really like to play the Complete Collection on PSP because it has the After Years. So yeah, anyway, back to Final Fantasy IV. As I said before, this game is just amazing. It's got a fantastic story. It's the first Final Fantasy game to introduce the active time battle system, which is pretty damn good. The game also has a ton of memorable characters. You have, when everybody says, who's their favorite Final Fantasy IV character, they always, think of 2 characters, Rydia and Cecil. I love Rydia and Cecil, but, my favorite out of all of them is Kain Highwind. He is just amazing. I think he deserves, more attention than anybody. The game also has, memorable villains such as the Archfiends, and, of course, Golbez, even though he's technically not the villain. Because, I play Final Fantasy IV a lot. So yeah. And it's got so many memorable moments, like Cecil becoming from Dark Knight and going to Paladin, Tella casting Meteor on Golbez, Rydia saving everybody from Golbez, and the final battle between Cecil, his friends, and Zeromus, which is just breathtaking. So yeah, either way, Final Fantasy IV easily earns the number 2 spot. And before I finish off this, I just have to say this one line. You Spoony Bard! Yeah. Now, I'm not gonna do a recap because you guys are probably gonna know what number 1 is gonna be because, well, it's probably a predictable choice. But, before I reveal number 1, there is one Final Fantasy game I like to talk about, even though it's a spin-off, but I just want to talk about it. That is Dissidia Duodecim Final Fantasy for the PSP. It is my favorite, but it's on the spin-off side. It's a great fighting game, and if you own a PSP, I highly recommend you pick it up, because it's just an amazing game. So yeah, that's a little talk about Dissidia Duodecim. So yeah. Anyways, I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably wondering, what game can possibly top the almighty Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, or Final Fantasy IV? Well, I'm sure a lot of you guys already know. So, without further ado, here it is. My number 1 favorite Final Fantasy game of all time, tied with Dissidia Duodecim, in the main Final Fantasy series, is Final Fantasy VI. Oh my god. This game, Final Fantasy VI is just an absolute masterpiece. I know I'm kind of pissing off FF7 fans by saying that because I love this game. Final Fantasy VI is just the perfect Final Fantasy game. I know I'm sounding a bit gushy, and I know some people are going to say that 6 is overrated. I don't give a shit. I love this game. But yeah, anyway, there's just so much I love about Final Fantasy VI. First of all, I just love the story. The story is amazing. The characters are just memorable and just perfect. Some people may say they have no character development, but I don't care. I love them. And the best thing I love about this game is just about everything. So, yeah. Alright, enough gushing. So, yes, Final Fantasy VI, the second Final Fantasy game, the third Final Fantasy game released outside of Japan, formerly known as Final Fantasy III, as I already mentioned, about 5 and 4. But this game is just amazing. The story is just amazing. It's basically, the whole story follows these creatures called espers that hosts abilities called magic, and this empire plans to use the magic to become rulers of the world. However, a rebellion known as the Returners plan to stop the empire. And what's cool is that Final Fantasy VI has lots of playable characters. You have the main character, Terra, who is a half-human, half-esper. The charming treasure hunter, Locke, who's just cool. Then there's other characters like Edgar, Sabin, Shadow, Gaul, Realm, Strago. And of course you have the best villain in the whole Final Fantasy franchise, at least in my opinion, Kefka. Oh god, I love Kefka. He's just amazing. Even though he and Sephiroth are tied as one of my personal favorites, I like Kefka as a villain more than Sephiroth, and I like Sephiroth appearance-wise more than Kefka. But I don't care. I just love Kefka. And of course, there is one character I forgot to mention. Celes! Oh my god, I love Celes. I mean, she's such a great character. I mean, every time you see Celes, you always feel a soft spot in your heart. And tell me, this game is sometimes a tearjerker. And it's got so many memorable scenes from Terra's first transformation as an Esper, to the opera scene, which is my favorite, even though I hate opera, to the scene when, after Kefka destroys the world, Celes and takes care of Sid, and if he dies, we see the sad scene of her losing hope, and that's kind of sad. I won't spoil too much. But yeah, this is, without a doubt, one of the best games I ever played. Not just on the Super Nintendo, or the Anthology version, which I own. I own the Virtual Console version and the PlayStation version of 6. This game is just an absolute masterpiece. I just love this game. It's the perfect RPG, even though I prefer other ones like mostly the Pokemon games, but still. I love Final Fantasy VI. And I don't care what anybody says. Even if you say that your favorite game is Final Fantasy VII or 4, that's fine, but anybody who loves Final Fantasy VI may agree with me on this, that this is the best Final Fantasy game of all time. And that is why it's my #1 favorite. Well, that was my top 10 favorite Final Fantasy games. I really hope you guys enjoyed. And if you want to tell me what your favorite Final Fantasy games are, leave a comment on the video description if you like. And I would really like to know your guys' opinions on the series. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in my next countdown, which will not be Still Picture this time. So until then, this is Shadow Ash, and I will see you guys next time.